Good afternoon. I want to be very sure that you enjoyed the last video we did on the basis of PHP. So today I'm going to be taking you on what I call registration scripts. We have different types of registration scripts. There are some that are very simple, while some are very professional. So for the newbie, I'm going to start with a very simple registration script. Looking at my screen, you can see add new clients. The first input field, you put your name, the second one, the phone number, then the third one, your email. You click on register. As you can see that on the next page, it's display registration successful. So let's try and see how this can be done. Going to my ID environment, you can see that I open three major pages. The first one is connect to MySQL. Some people do call it connect.php. This is the script that I use to connect my scripts with my database. As you can see, the DB host is localhost, the DB username is roots, DB pass is empty, DB name is SolarX, that is the major database name. Then you could see variable con equals MySQLi connect, in which I was able to connect the DB host with the DB username, with the DB pass, and the DB name. So the major function that is used here is MySQLi connect. If you are just watching our video, I will encourage you to go to the previous videos where we treat the basis of PHP, the likes of variable, the likes of array functions, SQL, and the likes. So that you can be qualified to understand this video better. But if you are smart enough, you can still get it. Now, after I've created the first page, known as connect to MySQL, I can now go to the news tool. This is just raw HTML. As you can see, this is the user interface. This is exactly how it will look like to the user. Now, how am I going to do it that by the time the user inputs the necessary inputs and it click on register, it's going to send this immediately to the database. So as you can see that in my database, I only have 3 rows. So let me try and explain why I will input another user. Now, after you've done with your connect to MySQL, then the next thing is to go to the registration script. In this, I call it regscript.php. Definitely, there must be a connection between your reg scripts and your new student page scripts. So let's see. You could see that in my form space method equals post space action, I put the name of the reg script that I called regscripts.php. Then after that, the major thing we need is to tap variable for each of the input field. That is a separate variable that will take the name inputted by any user. A separate variable will store the phone number input by user, and the last variable will store the email. When I was taking you on how to get value directly from your user, I told you about global variable that I call variable underscore posts or variable underscore get. So you can go back to watch the video for you to understand how to tap variable directly from user. So going to the reg script, the first thing is I use include connect to my SQL. So the second line is basically to connect to my SQL script to my REST script. Then after that, you can go to the next line, which is line 5 here, but I can decide to reduce it so that I'll remove this unnecessary space. Now after that, you could see that I use a conditional statement if is set variable post submits. Is set is a function that helps you to know that a particular value is being stored. You can easily read about a set function. What I'm using this function to do in this case is that anytime user click on register, computer will recognize that the user has filled every necessary field in order to submit to the database. You will notice that the button that I use here, I put a name attribute known as submit in small letter. Going back to the script, you could see that that is exactly what I use inside the variable underscore posts. Then after now, I can start declaring variable that will store for each of the input field. The first one is variable name. What this does, it taps both the first name and the last name of the user. Going back to the newstil.php, you could see that for the name, I use the name attribute name. For the phone number, I use the name attribute phone. And for the email, I use the name attribute email. So now going back to the REST script, that's exactly what I use to tap the three variables. Then immediately after then, I can now declare an SQL statement, which is what? Insert into student. The student here is the table name. Let me quickly take you back for you to see my database. As you can see, that student is the name of the table that will store every value that is inputted by each user. Now going back, you could see that the first column is name, the second column is telephone, and the last one is email. You will not need to really include the serial number because that one is being set in auto increase. So the next thing is the variable name will correspond with the name column of the table. Variable telephone will correspond to the telephone column of the table, and variable email will correspond to the email column of the table. Then after this is done, I will now query the first statement that I stored in variable query, in which I call variable query 2 equals MySQL underscore query variable con, comma variable query. Variable con is seen in the connect to my SQL page. Can you see that that is a variable that stores, the variable that I use to store all the connection. So that is the variable con. Then after that, comma variable query, that is the first statement to be sure that everything is set in the next in line 9. Then after which in line 14, and I said if variable query 2 equals to, the meaning is that if everything is correct, then echo registration successful, and if there's a problem, echo registration failed. So I think the best way to really get this tutorial is, as you are watching the video, make sure that you are doing the same on your system. And I want to assure you, if you really follow the video, you'll be able to successfully submit your registration form to the database. So this is the simplest of the registration scripts. So in the next class, I'll be taking you on another type, or let me say another example of registration scripts. The next one is going to be through validation. There are ways you could notice that I didn't do any validation. Validation in what sense? For example, even if I put number as name, it's still going to go. If my email is not correct, it will still submit to the database. So in the next class, I'll be teaching you more on data validation. Thank you once again. I remain your tutor, Busola Johnson. Thank you.